In the history of professional sports, there have been few executive-player relationships as harmonious, as mutually beneficial, as weirdly supportive as the relationship between James Harden and Daryl Morey, while they were together on the Houston Rockets and rising to prestige and veneration throughout the league. Wasn't so chummy once Harden got older and slower and grumpier. Hello, I'm interrupting myself and you for just a moment to tell you that we have a Patreon with excellent new stuff every week, and it's very fun, so consider joining it. All right, I am going to throw it back to Clara. Let's start at the top. Before anyone anywhere could imagine any beef between these two other than a celebratory steak dinner. In 2012, Morey traded for Sixth Man of the Year James Harden. He seemingly knew before anyone else that the guy coming off the bench behind Durant and Westbrook on the Western Conference champion Thunder was going to be very, very good. And James Harden seemingly knew that Morey was onto something with his new radical approach to the game of basketball. Morey loved analytics and devised Morey Ball, a style of basketball based in math and probability, which is another kind of math actually, that contends that three-pointers are worth more than two-pointers, so everyone needs to stop taking long twos. Only threes and layups or dunks were worthwhile. Corner threes being the most worthwhile, because the corners are closer to the basket than anywhere else along the arc. And James Harden said, sure, I'm in. Which is a bigger deal than it may seem. Rockets coach Mike D'Antoni explained it as spending his time coaching instead of convincing. Not only did Harden buy in, he was also good at Morey Ball. He could drive and roll to hit layups, he could step back to hit threes, and he could make space for his teammates to hit those corner threes. The Rockets broke records and broke them again. They saw 2 Western Conference Finals berths, Harden racked up individual awards, and Morey was crowned basketball's nerd king. He was Executive of the Year in 2018, too. I want to just emphasize the word nerd here because it segues nicely into this little tidbit. In 2018, Morey produced a musical called Small Ball about an analytics-obsessed executive trying to change the game of basketball. The fact that Harden, who parties with rappers, would get along with a musical theater-loving GM really speaks to the uniqueness and strength of their bond. Or maybe not, they both like music. Morey and Harden worked in tandem off the court as well, to the extent that Morey said the Rockets treated Harden like an owner. You hear a lot of rumors and theories about star players calling the shots on their team, but rarely does the GM freely admit that's what's going on. Harden helped with recruiting efforts and Morey sang his praises. Morey fucking loved James Harden. He once said without prompting that Harden was a better scorer than Michael Jordan. He had some mathy reasons for saying so, and maybe he's right in that context, but to say that when no one was debating it, while wearing a t-shirt featuring James Harden's face, shows a strong level of love. As does commissioning a life-size portrait of someone and hanging it in your home. It may seem a bit much, but maybe I've just never had a real friend before. And I certainly haven't had such an impactful friendship before. By the end of Morey's time in Houston, Harden was a superstar, one of the best in the league, and Morey was the nerd king of basketball. Without Harden's success, he wouldn't be king. And perhaps without Morey's system, Harden would be known as an easily disgruntled star who doesn't play defense and collapses in the playoffs. Whoops, getting ahead of myself. Or maybe I'm not, because you might be wondering why their time together ever came to an end. Well, they never won a title. They never even made it to the finals. The Harden-Morey Rockets simply couldn't get past the Warriors. They might have if Chris Paul hadn't gotten hurt or Harden hadn't... What's the opposite of stepped up? Dug a little hole to fall into belly first? In the summer of 2020, Morey left the Rockets, and when he did, he took out a full-page newspaper ad to thank the city and the team, specifically thanking James Harden for changing his life. Then he headed to the 76ers. James headed to the Nets that fall after getting a little ornery, possibly wearing a fat suit and forcing a trade. In the middle of the following season, Harden again got a little ornery, donned no costumes, but still forced another trade to, the 76ers. reunited. Now, there was a negative narrative about Harden brewing, but Morey did not care. The Nerd King was convinced that the former MVP, despite his advanced age and baggage, was Philly's missing piece. Just pair him up with Joel Embiid and enjoy the trip to Titletown. And Harden seemed like he had finally found his landing spot. The Sixers did not win a title in 2020, and Harden did not live up to expectations. He wasn't the missing piece, and Morey would need to get additional pieces that summer. To do so, he'd need more cap space, and his old pal Harden stepped up, taking a $15 million pay cut, which allowed the team to sign PJ Tucker and Daniel House, two more former Rockets. Now, a lot of people thought Harden's old pal Morey would repay him the $15 million and then some with a maximum contract the following year. It would, of course, be against the rules to promise that, but as long as they didn't write anything down, it was all good. The aging star took to the press to proclaim his sacrifice and selflessness in the pursuit of a title, which caused a lot of eye-rolling because, one, the assumption that Morey would take care of him later, and two, he hadn't played well. Also, it's a little disingenuous to just say he's taken a pay cut, what a great dude. If he hadn't signed this new contract with Philly, he'd make $15 million more in the 22-23 season, true, but he'd be a free agent the following year. And if he kept on his downward being a pill trajectory, would he really be able to get more than $35.6 million on the free market? Not to mention, the contract had an opt-out clause, so if he somehow fought back Father Time and had a really good 22-23 season, he could collect a long-term max deal from whatever team felt he earned it or had secretly already promised it to him. Which kind of looked like what would happen. He was playing well enough that he was garnering interest from other teams, specifically the Rockets, which had to make Morey a little bummed until the playoffs, which made the GM more than a little bummed for a very different reason. The Sixers were out in the second round after blowing a 3-2 lead to Boston. They lost Game 7 by 24 points. That's all embarrassing enough, but take a look at how Harden personally contributed to the embarrassment. And it gets worse, actually. He shot 4 air balls in Game 7. While missing a layup, he got called for a flagrant for needlessly smashing the face of Jaylen Brown, who had recently recovered from a facial fracture. The Philadelphia Inquirer said of Harden's performance, "What humiliation, what disgrace." The Rockets were no longer interested in James Harden. Nobody was interested in James Harden. Good thing Harden had his best bud to rely on. It's always good to have a friend to talk to when you're feeling low. And if you're talking about a max contract that you absolutely could not get anywhere else, that'll probably cheer you up too. But after the playoffs, Morey didn't reach out to Harden. At all. In the past, the two would gab constantly after the season. But this year, Morey ghosted the guy who changed his life. Beef time. No, claimed Morey. He was just trying to avoid tampering fines. He'd gotten in trouble just a season earlier for talking to Tucker and House too early, so he was being extra careful. Really, Morey? It didn't have anything to do with the fact that you didn't want to give Harden the 4-year, $210 million contract he was expecting because maybe you had told him he could have it? It certainly wasn't the nicest way to send a message. The city of Philadelphia did not blame Morey and would not have if he'd taken even harsher tactics. They looked at Harden and said, "Cool beard, cool assist total, you're inhibiting Tyrese Maxey, you're out of shape, and we hate you." Besides, it's not in Morey's character to provide a sweetheart deal to a friend even though it doesn't look good on paper. Morey loves paper. That's what data's printed on. Harden read between the non-lines he was getting from Morey and inferred that he was not getting a max deal. And since no other team wanted to pay him either, he opted into his 23-24 contract with Philly for $35.6 million. But he requested a trade, specifically to the Clippers, and we know that Harden has a way of making trade requests compelling. He started small. In July, he scrubbed his social media bios of references to the Sixers. Then he made an Instagram post that's open to interpretation, but sure seemed to be a threat to Morey. especially because a source said Harden was planning to make the Sixers as uncomfortable as possible until they traded him. So what was Morey gonna do? His 33-year-old point guard was declining, but remember those regular season stats? He wasn't a scrub either. Morey couldn't just trade him for nothing. He had to get back someone who could lead the league in a category. Someone who could drop 45 points a game sometimes. Someone who could be Joel Embiid's co-star. But the rest of the league, mainly LA, wasn't eager to give up a whole lot for an old, ornery playoff choker who sometimes dropped 45 points a game. On August 12, 2023, Morey announced that the 76ers had ended trade talks involving James Harden. 2 days later, while at a promotional event in China, Harden called Morey a liar and said he would not play for him. Morey defended himself and kept his response calm and diplomatic, but Harden's accusation was big, for a bunch of reasons. First, it seemed a one-of-a-kind friendship was dead, so that's sad. Second of all, accusing Morey while in China may have been pointed because Daryl Morey angered the Chinese government quite a bit back in 2019 when he tweeted in support of Hong Kong. And most of all, the NBA was like, "What's that? What did your GM lie about, James? Was it an illegal deal to give you a max contract, and do we now need to fine the hell out of him and ruin the Sixers' future with penalties?" The NBA launched an investigation into Harden's comments, but found no need for the crushing hammer of justice. Couldn't have been a very thorough investigation because fast forward to December, and Harden did admit Morey had promised him that illegal deal. But let's back up a bit. Harden said he wouldn't play for Morey. Morey had not traded him, and the 23-24 season was starting. Harden skipped media day. He skipped the first day of training camp. Hey, the no-show act got him out of Houston, remember? Why wouldn't it get him out of Philly? Well, because the CBA said it wouldn't. The fine print had pretty harsh consequences for a vet in the last year of his contract withholding services. So fine, he came to training camp, but he didn't play. And he didn't make up with Morey. In mid-October, he said that trust between them was lost. And that had pretty dire consequences for a guy like James Harden. He returned Morey's post-playoff silent treatment the best he could, making the GM go through his agent for all communication. He rarely even spoke Morey's name in public. Harden told the press he might be ready to play by the team's final preseason game, but instead ditched the team for 10 days. Morey didn't speak on the subject, but Philadelphia's blood was boiling. And it's possible the GM was feeling some heat as well, either from external sources or his own heart. There was speculation his legacy was riding on this Harden situation. The Sixers told the former MVP to stay home for the season opener. But he showed up at the airport, bags packed and Dramamine ingested, and security had to send him away. This was the moment the beef started to burn. Not in a charring, smoky kind of way, in a "goddammit, get the fire extinguisher" kind of way. 2 days after the airport incident, Morey resumed trade talks. 3 days after that, Harden was a Clipper. Morey's legacy wasn't wrecked. He did pretty good considering his tight spot. And Harden got to go where he wanted. So, could these former pals put a few years of Philadelphia unpleasantness behind them and refocus on the good old days of scoring titles, of wearing t-shirts with Harden's face, of evolving the game they loved and building their illustrious careers together? "Yep, I'm sure of it," said Morey, gazing at his life-sized Harden portrait. "And James?" "Absolutely not," said Harden, sitting before a plate of steaming hot beef. Hey everybody, how you doing? Oh, I can't hear you. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you liked it. I hope you like me. And for Secret Base, I'm Clara Morris. Good night and good game.